Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to the second episode of High Yielding Areas for History. And in this, we will understand a very critical concept which is related to the first one or the first episode itself, which is Did Buddhism. Today, we do Jainism. Now, Buddhism and Jainism, when we talk about the number of questions which come in the previous year questions of prelims or mains, it is quite high. And in 2026 prelims itself, we have a direct question, a very easy question out of Jainism, and therefore Buddhism, Jainism generally very important. From the next episode onwards, I'm going to pivot towards modern India and we'll do certain parts of national movement, part by part, at least in 2 to 3 parts. But as you know, on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we will be uploading this for this whole month so that your GS preparation and your prelims preparation both is sorted. Either you're a beginner or you are preparing for mains. Everything I will cover in the way it should be taken into consideration. Now, if you want the PPT of this session, you will find it in this Telegram group. You have to subscribe to it. You have to also comment in the comment section on what topics you want this episode to go further into. I have a certain list. I would also like you to know that what do you want. And remember that the 17,999 plus 12 months extension offer is live as of right now. This offer is going to end on 8th of July. And you have to use the code IS English. Very, very, very important to be tagged to our team and also to unlock this price and 12 months extension. Now, as we did in the last episode, I hope you saw the last episode, but if you didn't, we talked about how Buddhism and Jainism rise. That is the aspect which comes in the mains examination. That what is the context in which Buddhism and Jainism rose, and we were able to establish three major causes for it. The first one being how Vedic Brahmanism was very ritualistically centric, based on the idea of ritual sacrifice, you say punya, or what is called as the ritualistic merit which you get through the process of sacrifices and rituals. And therefore, you are going to get moksha. You will leave this cycle of birth, rebirth, and death in that regard by getting this, you can say, ritualistic merit, and that sacrifices and rituals are the only way. Sacrifice and ritual are the only way. This makes this whole process very, very exclusionary. At the same point of time, it is also problematic because it is expensive and not a lot of people can do these forms of rituals and sacrifices. At the same point of time, we talked about two very important concepts with the rise of Mahajanpadas, which happens in the 6th century BC, and the rise of trade. You have frustration amongst the Kshatriya community because they will always be ritualistically second. At the same point, we have frustration within the Vaishyas because they have a lot of money, but they are third in the Varna system. So the Kshatriyas have power, but they don't have status. The Vaishyas have money, again, they don't have status. Then there's also a lot of materialism, moral degeneration because of the money which is flowing in, poverty, death, destruction. So the idea is very simple. Based on this, they find the constituency. And the Jain community, which is mostly Vaishya, Jainism targeted the Vaishya community quite a lot. At the same point of time, Vedic Brahmanism and its frustrating rituals and the need for moral regeneration all together are taken. These 3 points have to go into your answer in order to write any answer for why was there a need for the rise of Jainism, Buddhism, or Ajivism, or what is called as heterodox religions to rise. This aspect should be clear. Now, once you have understood that, we move to prelims territory and factual understanding, common in PCS examinations plus UPSC. So, the most important propagator, or this is where a lot of students get confused, Jain philosophy is based on what Rishabhanatha had to say, wherein Jain philosophy originated under Rishabhanath, whilst Jain religion, which is the institutionalization of the Jain religion itself, happened under Mahavira. So, therefore, we have the first Tirthankar as the one who gave philosophy, and we have the last Tirthankar as the one who created the religion itself. That is where Vardhamana Mahavir, born in and around the same time as Buddha, Kundagrama, capital of Videha, thereafter, father Siddhartha, and comes from again a Kshatriya community, much like Siddhartha or Buddha. The Natri tribe, mother is Trishala. At till the age of 30, he will again, till 29, Buddha was in worldly pleasure and worldly understanding. Till the age of 30, he will be in the understanding of worldly pleasure and worldly life, and then renounce and become an ascetic. He will practice austerity for 12 years, attain highest spiritual knowledge, and then conquer misery and happiness both, a term which is called as Kaivalya or Valya. This is very important term. These terms can directly come in the examination, generally very important. Then he will die at power at the age of 72. So, similarly, how we have the questions related to Buddhism, you can get questions related to Jainism, life of Jain. You can say Tirthankar, specifically the last one, who is Vardhamana Mahavira. So, we'll talk about what does this word Tirthankar and Jain mean, but this is the basic story when it comes to Vardhamana Mahavira. Now, before we go into basic philosophy, let's talk about where does the word Jain come from. See, the word Jain comes from Jina. Jina means the one with infinite knowledge. The one who follow the Jina are Jain. So Jina and the word Tirthankar are used for the most important preceptors. So Jina and Tirthankar, same connotation, just the meaning is different. Jina means the one with infinite knowledge. Tirthankar means the one who helps you bridge the ocean of sorrow and ford of salvation or ford to salvation. Ford is basically when you have some form of water body and there's a very, you can say, shallow strip of sand or silt which allows you to cross that river or that water body. Therefore, Tirthankar or Jina helps you cross the river of sorrow. And that is a very important concept which is linked to the concept of Jainism, Jain, Jina. So, Jina followers, Jain. Then we have what is called as the basic philosophy of Jainism. We have understood that the philosophy comes from Rishabhanath. We know that it was institutionalized by Vardhamana Mahavira when there was no Tirthankar going to come, so he institutionalized it. We know that both are called as Jina or what is called as Tirthankars. Same meaning per se, one with infinite knowledge who allows you to travel across the ocean of sorrow. And together, they are basically considered two major pillars of Jainism. Now, when it comes to basic philosophy, it is based on what is called as Anekvad, Shayadvad. And there are other aspects also. When we talk about Anekvad, see, Anekvad is a ontological assumption that things remain the same, also they continue, but as much as they continue, they change also. That is, an entity is at once enduring but also ongoing change in both constant is both constant and inevitable. Meaning, you will continue to exist as you do, but you will also change is both inevitable. Therefore, all entities have three aspects: substance, quality, mode, and thus an entity has both the abiding continuity or continuous nature and qualities in a state of constant flux. So basically, because your dravya serves as substratum for multiple gunas, each of which is constantly undergoing transformation and modification, you are always going to change. So, anekvad means multiplicity. The idea that you will also remain the same, but you will also change. Both inevitabilities are clear and constant. So, you are in a constant change. You're a constant state of change. At the same time, you are at the constant, you can say, state of continuity. So you exist and change at the same point in time. Quite contradictory, quite interesting that way. Similarly, you have another concept which is called as Shayadvad. Shayadvad is the concept that all judgments are conditional, holding good only in certain conditions, circumstances, and the aspect of maybe. Meaning, you cannot always be clear. Your answer is always what it is because of the context in itself. And therefore, when the context changes, the ways of looking at a thing, Naya, are infinite, and therefore the meaning can also be infinite. So, You are in a constant state of change, but also continuity. And the answer to your problems can be infinite, and it cannot be basically certain. It is because you have multiple perspectives here. Therefore, together, Jainism is a little bit more complex philosophy than Buddhism. So Buddhism, Jainism, both have their own core understandings. But Jainism, Anekvad, Shayadvad, this has been asked in the examination directly. What are they related to Jainism? But Jainism is also based on what is called as the Tirthankar concept. There have been 24 Tirthankars. The first one being Rishabhanath, who is basically the one who gave the Jain philosophy, and the last being Mahavira, who is basically the one who institutionalized religion. Now, at the same point of time, you have 24 Tirthankars, but the historicity of these 24 Tirthankars is not clear. We know only the story of Mahavira. We have references to Rishabhanath in even the Vedic texts. We have some reference to Naminath and Neminath and Parsavnath, but other than that, we don't know in which period did they were they, what was the philosophy at that point of time, what was their you can say way of understanding, and what is their way to salvation at that point of time. Therefore, we mostly believe that Mahavira, when he understood that the 25th Tirthankar is not coming through, he institutionalized this whole religion. He then made it into a proper religion. But the philosophy of Jainism is much older than Jainism itself. Jainism as a religion is much, much, much late than Jainism as a philosophy. So, again, you have to contextualize 3 to 4 things here. What is the story of Vardhamana Mahavira? Who is Rishabhanatha? This is very, very important, which you have to understand. At the same point of time, they are part of a 24 Tirthankar constellation. When we talk about basic philosophy, it is based on Anekvad and Shayadvad. At the same point of time, Jina is a word which is used for the person with infinite knowledge. Tirthankar is the one who makes you go through the ocean of sorrow itself. And overall, you have to understand that this is the basic philosophy. But when you start to institutionalize, Anekvad Shayadvad is the philosophical part. When it starts to become a religion, then there are pillars which will emerge, which is called the Triratnas, the Mahavratas, and the Panchvratas, as we will discuss. So, I hope till this point are on the same page with me, you understand what we mean by this. Now, there are three Ratnas of Buddhism. Similarly, there are three Ratnas of Jainism also. This is based on how you look at the Jina. You should have the right faith towards the Jina that he will make you cross the ocean of sorrow. You should have right knowledge, knowledge given by the Jina itself that he is giving you the right knowledge to cross the ocean of sorrow. And you have to conduct yourself in the way the Jina taught you. So you have to have faith, you have to have knowledge, and you also have to have conduct. So KFC basically helps you understand what is the three Ratnas. But Jain religion is much, much, much more difficult to follow because of what is called as the five great vows or the Panch Mahavratas. What? If you become a monk within Jainism, you have to accept the following: not to injure any living being, ahimsa, not to utter any falsehood, not to take what is not given, not to steal, celebrate life, and call nothing one's own, which is non possession. Now, you don't, as you and me, if we are Jains, we don't have to follow all these Panch Mahavratas. But ahimsa is something on which Jainism is extremely uncompromising on. That is why Jainism was not prescribed too much by the political communities. But within Jainism, there are multiple professions. And the best profession is being a Vaishya trader. Why? Because in trade, you don't harm anyone. That is where it comes to the concept of ahimsa. Because ahimsa is important, being a trader, being a merchant, you just get your livelihood, you don't fight with anybody, you're not harming anybody. Therefore, the best profession possible, as indicated within Jain philosophy. So, this is what makes Jainism difficult to follow, because then, as a ruler, you would have to give up on, and not like the Buddhist Dhamma, which is basically vegetarianism and the righteous war. War is something which they will never accept. Then, ahimsa is central to Jainism, the first vow for the renunciant as well as laity. Laity means layman followers. So, you have to follow ahimsa. Jains believe for every form of existence, a soul should be there and should not be harmed. This is very important. They believe every object, everything which is there in the world has a soul. If you see in the examination the word soul, 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 it is Jainism. They believe everything has a soul, therefore they should not be harmed. Why they should not be harmed? Because of the concept of ahimsa. And therefore, this is what came in the examination this time, 2026, directly out of what I had even done just before prelims in a marathon itself, which is Jain doctrine recognizes four main forms of existence: gods, Deva, human, Manushya, hell beings, Naraki, and animal and plants, which is Triancha. What was given in the examination was Yaksha, Yakshi, Yaksha, Yakshi are cults, not the form of existence within Jainism. Further, animals and plants can be subdivided into smaller subcategories based on sense faculty, how many senses they have. Now, a monk, a renunciant, has to observe ahimsa to the highest level. Even if one sense is there, they cannot harm it. That is why they wear mupattis, which is some form of mask. They basically, when they sit, they broom that area so that they don't kill the microorganisms. At the same point of time, lay person has to avoid harming beings with two or more senses, but the renunciant has to do for even single sense being an elemental bodies. That is why they will broom, they will sit, they will not inhale without mupatti. The idea is it is a very, very, very difficult religion to follow generally, because of the fact that Jainism has a lot of stress on ahimsa, and in the era of Mahajanpadas, that is something which the Mahajanpadas do on a day-to-day basis, therefore difficult to follow. Very strong following within the, you can say, merchant community, but never got political patronage the way they should have got. Then, once we have understood all the pillars here, meaning what is Triratna, what are the Panch Vratas, we understand the concept of soul, we understand the concept of ahimsa, we also understand Anekavad, we understand Syadvad. Now I have given you a lot of different terms here also, which are very, very important. You have to learn them also. Then, much like Buddhism, there is also two schools here. But in Buddhism, it is much more complex. Four schools: but Theravada, Hinayanic, Mahayanic, and Vajrayanic. Here there are two schools: Digambar, Shwetambar. Now, it is believed that there was a major famine, drought-like situation in Magad, which in turn led to the Jain community to, for their survival, get divided into two groups. One group which stayed in North India, one group which went to South India. That is where this differentiation comes through. One group starts to wear white clothes, Shwetambar. One group basically believes what Mahavira did is important, which is remain nude. Digambars don't wear clothes, Shwetambar wear white clothes. So, do not wear clothes, complete nudity. They believe we will follow what Mahavira did and follow all five constraints as per the teachings of Mahavira. Then Bhadrabahu, the main proponent, moved to Karnataka, and that is where Bhadrabahu followers became Digambars. Believe that Jains believe that women cannot become Tirthankars, and Digambar Jains basically say that one of the most important personalities, Mali, was a man, and therefore, obviously, women can also not be saints in Digambar. At the same point, right, Shwetambars wear white clothes. They believe in what Parsavnath told them, only four other than Brahmacharya. They also are the followers of Stulbhadra, and believe that Tirthankars can be both man and woman, and Mali was a princess. They believe one very important concept, which is that women can also be saints. So you have Digambars, Shwetambars, very contradictory ideology when it comes to how they have to interpret Mahavira, but they basically believe that all five vows are not relevant. Well, Shwetambars basically, that they are all not relevant in the present context. Digambar believe all five vows are relevant. This is an important table for you. Why? Because you can get directly mains question and also prelims question out of this. You should know who is the proponent. You should understand the differentiation over, except brahmacharya, how five vows, four vows, women and their stance of women. Jainism generally is a very conservative religion because it believes that women will only get salvation once they are reborn as a man, and therefore there's a lot of contradiction. This is with Buddhism also, Jainism also, very conservative at heart, but they're challenging the caste and varna system. But that is where we have to take into consideration that Shwetambar was changing with the time, Digambar was staying with the original understanding. Now, within the Digambars and Shwetambars, there are also two sets, meaning Digambars have subset called the Moolsang, Therapanthi, Taranpanthi, Bishpanthi. Important because UPSC previously has asked sects of Buddhism and Jainism. The number of sects of Jainism is much, much, much less than Buddhism. And therefore, it allows you to basically solve the questions through the process of elimination. Now, Shwetambars have three sects, which is Thanakvasi, Murti Pujak, Therapanthi. Sthanakvasis are the ones who believe that we will pray to saints rather than the idols, and they wear a mask to cover their mouth. Murti Pujaks and Therapanthis, Murti Pujaks, as the word say Murti, idol worship, and they do not wear a mupatti. Therapanthi and Sthanakvasi are same, pray to saints, and wear a mupatti. Now you will say, sir, there is a Therapanthi here also, Therapanthi here also. The difference is these Therapanthi are not going to wear clothes, they will wear clothes. So Therapanthi, there are two, one who wear clothes, one who don't wear clothes, and Murti Pujak Sthanakvasi. These terms are important for the examination, have directly come previously also. Then the last aspect, before I give you a whole revision of this concept, is also the councils. Much like there are four councils in Buddhism, there are two councils in Jainism. 3rd century, 512 CE, Patliputra, Vallabhi, and you have Stulbhadra and you have Davarthi as two presiding, you can say, monks in that regard. In this, the 12 major angs means which is called as the 12 major books are the Magdi Prakrit. They were written. These are the canonical texts. And in the second Jain Council, the 12 Up-angs were written, which are considered to be the what is called as sub-books. So, sub-books, 12 Up-angs and the angs. So, the sub-books of Jainism were written. Don't learn the names. Very difficult to do that. Don't do this. But you should know what are the angs and Up-angs. Now, let's basically survey everything properly. Jainism, context as same as Buddhism. Then we have reasons, again as similar as Buddhism. We have the Triratna, which is KFC, which is you have knowledge, faith, and conduct. At the same point of time, you have the 5 vows, out of which Ahimsa is something which is very, very important. Then you have the concept of soul, the 4 types of beings, and one sense soul or one senses have you, the renunciant cannot do harm. If more than 2 senses, the Jains cannot do more harm. That is why they're extremely vegetarian. Further, they also don't eat certain crops which are grown underground. And thereafter, we have 2 councils, which is Ang and Upangs. We have 2 major schools, Digambar, Shwetambar. Within that, we have Digambar, Moolsang, Therapanthi, Tharanpanthi, and Bispanthi. And in Shwetambar, we have 3 schools, which is Sthanakvasi, Murti Pujak, and Therapanthi. If you can remember all of this, you are now mains and prelims ready both. Now, 2 major areas out of ancient India, which is extremely important, high yielding, are done. From next episode onwards, we will move into modern India and try to cover things related to modern India also. So I would like to thank you. I hope that you're liking these sessions. Please do comment in the comment sections if this is helping you. And also like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And also share this video to your friends as much as possible. Thank you. Take care.